And if we're not doing our job, what we create inflation. Prison taxes will enslave the middle class. We need to do something very soon, and they need someone who can help them to fight and win some battles so we can win the war. But these people are even worse. They're hypocrites and liars, and I think we're done with lies.
I'm Andy Mangione, Senior Vice President of AMAC Action, guest hosting this edition. And I'd like to welcome back to the Better for America podcast, Congresswoman Victoria Spartz of Indiana's 5th Congressional District. Congresswoman, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today.
Well, thank you for having me back.
You're very welcome. Let's get right to it. In 2023, Congresswoman, you announced that you would not seek re-election to your congressional seat, and you reversed that decision earlier this year. And we're curious to know what caused you to change your mind.
Well, listen, I never wanted to be a lifelong politician. I always feel it's a tour of duty. You need to do your duty and live the laws that you legislated. But I wanted to take some time off, spend some time with the family. But I felt, and a lot of my constituents and some of my colleagues felt, that the country is really in trouble. And we need to do something very soon. And they need someone who can help them to fight and win some battles so we can win the war. And I felt I cannot abandon the Republic in these challenging times. I need to make my case and for people in God to decide. And I won that very crazy primary, but now we'll have to deliver, and I'll do my best.
I love how you hold yourself accountable, Congresswoman. And you were recently honored by the National Taxpayers Union for having one of the strongest voting records for supporting limited government, economic freedom, and low taxes. You have a financial background. How do these aspects contribute to a thriving economy?
Well, and we need to, always put our money where our mouth is. And a lot of us say one thing that don't do it. But the main job of Congress is to oversee our spending. And if we're not doing our job, what we create inflation. Inflation is a highly regressive tax, and if we print money, that's what it causes it. And then you have, it really affects significantly people with low income, people on fixed income. If we don't wise with spending, if we're not doing a good job, then we'll have to be increasing taxes, and increasing taxes will enslave the middle class and the rest of the American to the government. So we will have no middle class. We'll have socialism. So if we're going to be a country of opportunities, of freedoms, and for anyone to pursue happiness, we need to make sure that government does core function well, but doesn't take all of the income of Americans. So we have to be much smarter. And I think we've done a terrible job for many, many years now as Congress. But that's about time, because a lot of big issues are going to start hitting the wall, and we're going to have a very, very, very serious consequences if we don't do something soon.
I like how you mentioned people living on fixed incomes. Those are AMAC members. And I wanted to ask you, Congresswoman, how has Biden-Harris economic policy hurt Americans, particularly back in Indiana?
Well, listen, you can print so much money until people start feeling the pain. And if you look at real inflation on key items, you don't have to read all of their fake reports that government does on how they really cook the books and make numbers look not as bad. So, people need to understand none of these numbers are audited and all these calculations just to make some people good. But people understand that when you go to the grocery store, when you try to, buy basic food, when you try to buy any real estate, if you try to actually get health care, if you try to get anything, you have a high hyperinflation of price. 80% of money were planned in the last 10 years, and they continue accumulated debt. So that's not a solution. So this reckless level of spending and giving money to a lot of their donors and special interest group now causing a lot of problems for a lot of Americans. And we're going to be facing very serious consequences soon. Inflation is very, very, very painful for many people.
Congresswoman, let's turn to foreign policy now. You've introduced legislation in a bipartisan manner to reduce the security risks posed by China to our economy and our financial markets. Would you please tell us about these Chinese threats and how your legislation mitigates them?
Well, listen, I think if we want to really put our economy back on track and strengthen our country, economically, the issues of debt and spending, we have to stop that corruption. We need to have energy policies that it can grow our economy and don't have dependencies on our adversaries. We have enormous potential to have increased domestic energy production on all types of energy. But we also need to deal with our supply chain. And we also cannot be dependent on the countries like China. They're not our friends. And in the strategic areas, we depend on them significantly. And on top of it, we're using our pension funds to finance Chinese communist enterprise and companies that produce weapons that, believe me, are not produced to be nice to us. They make pretty much, very official statement, Russia and China a few years ago, that they are going to be redividing the world and they're going to be taking over the world. So we need to take this statement seriously. And dependencies on country on that are very, very significant. But, not knowing that, for a lot of Americans, that their money are invested in foreign adversaries to finance their military complex, that's just truly criminal for us to do that. So we need to have this transparency, and that was my legislation is doing. So they're not hiding all of the stock within indexes and these mutual funds with that. And unfortunately, we have too many very shady bankers over there too that making money on that too. So we have to protect the public, and we can have a significant risk if we have conflict in Asia, and that could be hurt a lot of Americans. So this is a very important legislation, and I hope we'll be able to accomplish on this issue.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Now, you are the first Ukrainian-born member of Congress, and we're curious as to your thoughts about the conflict between Ukraine and Russia, and is there a possibility that this could spiral to involve other countries?
Well, listen, unfortunately, this conflict being, neglected and what Russia is doing for a while now is actually started under President Obama. When Russia entered Crimea, in eastern Ukraine, he gave blankets. Actually, President Trump was the only president. He had peace through strength, and Russia didn't move because they were afraid of him. And he was very tough on them, and not just tough with a talk, but actually with a walk. Unfortunately, this president failed in Afghanistan. This president failed to deter Russia. And what happened now, the conflict became bigger. Now Russia and Iran and China is destabilized the Middle East. And now we have serious situation in the Middle East. It can escalate very significantly. And when Ukrainian war, this aggression started in 22, I said, if we not deal very decisively, this war is going to spread. And it did spread. And now, it can even do more if we're not really, being very smart in our policy. If you think about it, Soviet Union wasn't actually defeated by weapons. Soviet Union was defeated by economic, financial policy, by energy policies. And right now, we are slow walking the aid, and then with no oversight and no strategy, didn't put any sanctions on Russian oil, let Russian oil finance the bloodshed in Ukraine, and didn't do any financial real sanctions on Russia. So the economy even grew. I mean, this is unbelievable what we're doing. And then on top of it, we have stupid, schizophrenic energy policies, that we are actually destroying our domestic production, which is really stupid. And that drives the cost, which only helps countries like Russia and China. And we are really not dealing with this effectively. And so it will escalate further if we not become stronger. And Russia has been taking advantage of the situation and weakness of no leadership in our country.
Thank you, Congresswoman. You just won a hotly contested primary contest. It is election season. We've got a big election in November. Kamala Harris has chosen Tim Walz to be her vice president. And I'm curious to find out, Congresswoman, are you buying any of this rhetoric that describes him as a folksy Midwesterner who wears flannel shirts?
No, listen, it's a wolf like in sheep's clothing, right? These people are socialists and they all, telling one thing with a nice smile. But when you look at their policy, they're robbing Americans. They are taking our rights away. And on top of it, honestly, they're totally incompetent. You can see, look at, just give some example how, what is it, like billions of dollars was, $500 million, I believe, was stolen, under his watch and his state, and he didn't even realize it. And there are no consequences for that. I mean, these people never ran anything, never accomplished anything, totally political, and make sure that, their special interest group that finance their campaigns get the money, and we're all paying a high price. And look at Kamala. I mean, she was supposed to be border czar. Then they realized, oh my gosh, the border is a mess. So Jake Sullivan recently was saying, she was actually in charge and helped us a lot with national security issues. And I'm thinking, I'm not sure if Jake is trying to punt this issue and to throw her under the bus because he failed so miserably. And he is trying to now to tell that it was Kamala in charge, or he is really trying to think that people are that stupid that don't see what's really happening, what wars we have, what mess we have around the world. I think he was making a statement, oh, we have this peace in the Middle East, everything's so great. I mean, it's crazy. And then we have it serious. She went to Poland, was laughing at the refugees. Christians threw under the bus Poland with MiGs and was describing the Ukraine as this like country, a little country, bigger country around it. Everyone was laughing. I mean, it was like a laughing stock and embarrassment for our country, how she looked on the international stage. So nobody is buying that. They just think that they can just sell it. And unfortunately, a lot of media on their side. But I think when American people are going to see that and hear them and see that they're truly lying to them, at least Bernie is honest. He says, I'm socialist. So I have to even disagree, respect. But these people are even worse. They're hypocrites and liars. And I think we're done with lies. We're tired with destruction of our country. I grew up in a socialist, communist country. And this is very hard to get your freedoms back. And you can see that former Soviet Republicans, almost none of them got it back. And Ukrainians are dying, millions and still cannot get it back.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Now, we're looking at a big election. We're seeing that the Democrats can't really run on the issues. You've got the media campaigning for Kamala Harris, and they're keeping her under wraps at least as of this taping. How confident are you that our elections will be secure in November? Because it seems that all that Democrats have right now is the manipulation of the election process to win.
I don't underestimate the opposition and how organized and how much government money they use through a variety of NGO to promote liberal extremist causes. So we have to be organized, and we have to be much smarter this time than last time and learn from mistakes and do a better job. But I also think it's important for us to talk about real issues and real solution and how we can govern and really show how the bright future of our country can be so bright. And there's so much innovation, so many great things can happen. And we need to really, they have no policy. Their policy is a tyranny, oppression, taking money, given to their friends. And people are sick and tired of that. So I think if we come with a positive message with solution, I think our margins will be high enough where it will be hard for them to manipulate the numbers. But we have to be very well organized but really be very serious about this. And I never underestimate them. They have a lot of money selling their bad policy agenda. We have much better. We always have less money, but I think we're able to win because I truly believe American people still with us. And, our institution as Congress is broken, but you know what? People see it. We don't have very high. I think we have a senile president. He has high approval ratings than Congress. So Americans, people are not that stupid. They see what's happening. People are just frustrated. But I will encourage people, not just do frustration and try to, but actually pay attention. Pay attention what these people are doing, not what they're just saying. Talk is cheap, but what people accomplish and what policies are good for their children, for their family, for the future of our country, and how we can keep our country strong. Because if we're not strong, everyone is in trouble. And I think we as a Republican have much better policies. And I'll push my Republicans to deliver. I'll do my part.
Thank you, Congresswoman. We really appreciate you taking the time to be with us today on AMAC's Better for America podcast. Best of luck with your re-election campaign.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for tuning in. I'm Andy Mangione. You can catch us again for another edition of the Better for America podcast.
The Association of Mature American Citizens is the conservative voice for Americans 50 and older. AMAC is fighting for the values that you hold dear. Join today. Together, we can write the course of America.